Nick is in the house.
For real. This is so official.
I like it.
Just something feels right about this setup right here.
It's only going to get better.
Nice.
Phones on Do Not Disturb. Let me do that real quick. So these people don't ask me 1,000 questions, and you get hit up nonstop.
Nonstop.
Like customers just asking questions they already know the answers to.
Real estate agents, which is totally fine. I mean, we have to be available when they're working, 7 days a week, specifically more so even sometimes on the weekends and during the week. But I'll get texts at 9, 10 o'clock at night, scenario, payment. What about this? What about that?
Is it all stuff you already said?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No, I mean, listen, sometimes I could probably recite forwards and backwards explaining how tax and insurance escrows work. That's one of the ones
we're going to get there.
Quite a lot.
JC, we're rolling?
Yeah.
Bluffton Buzz podcast show. I don't even know if I want to call it just a podcast anymore because we actually haven't uploaded it
Right.
to the podcast. I thought I had it going and then it didn't go.
Right.
And there's more of like a Facebook, YouTube show.
Show. I like it. The
Nick
show.
De Simone,
The show.
the lone wolf.
Yes, sir.
Dude, I got like, so many questions for you.
You've been waiting for this one. I've been waiting, anxiously waiting. And I got to be honest, you see me, I'm out and about. I do a lot of stuff and I go to a lot of things. I have a lot of opportunities. Fortunately, I'm grateful to be able to speak and do a lot of things. But I've been as excited, if not more excited about this than I have been anything else because, I don't know, just the stuff that you've been doing and the format of it and everything like that. So I don't want to take control of the ship here, but I'm jacked up. I'm excited.
I'll cut you off when I need to.
Yeah, perfect. Just
Dude,
shut me up.
You're here to talk, bro.
Right.
It's be worse than I extract answers out of you. Is it too hot in here? Is it getting too hot quick?
I'm good.
JC, are you good?
I'm good.
I'm getting hot quick. We'll have to put the fan on if we do. Okay. So we were just talking, I don't know, maybe JC will intro the show before we do the intro of the show with just the conversation we were having, because if you don't know Nick, it was a very good conversation. You are a mortgage
loan originator is the official, but a lot of people use loan officer interchangeably.
Okay.
The official title is mortgage loan originator.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I am going to bring other mortgage loan officiators on over time, but you are such a character of a human being in a good way. You're highly entertaining. And I was like, and you brought me on your show.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's
the
Low Show.
Yeah, the Yellow Show.
In the garage.
The Mortgage Garage, as I've come to call it, yes.
The Mortgage Garage.
I steal certain things, like the way that certain things are pronounced, and I have very little original material. For a couple of friends that they know that I'm a big fan of Pat McAfee, the show that he does, which is mostly obviously sports centric and a little WWE sprinkled in there because he gets involved with that. But the Hello Beautiful People, that show is back. I just pilfered that right from Pat McAfee. But I like to keep it just fun and
nothing's original.
Right, that's true.
I mean, what are you worried about?
That's
Everything
true.
Gets stolen, isn't it? I don't know the line. My brain doesn't work anymore. But there's like some of the flattery.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
There you go. You're flattering everybody, dude.
Flattering,
that's all I do.
And flattering up a storm.
That's right. So give me a little background on you, because I feel like people always get once they start to know you. Yeah. Right. I'm all about marketing and then know, like, and trust. Right. So if people don't know you, don't know your background, give me a quick, spiel. Give me the rundown on where you came from, how you got here, and how you got into mortgages.
Easy enough. So I'm with U.S. Bank Home Mortgage. And I have been in Bluffton for just over 2 years now. My wife and I, with our rescue German Shepherd Juno and our domestic short hair Ashes, moved down Easter Sunday of 2021. So it's been a little over 2 years in Bluffton, over in Lawton Station. And I've been in the mortgage industry for about 16 and a half years now. So This fall will be 17 years. I know I'm wearing a hat, but there's not a lot of hairs left on my head.
That's why you're wearing it.
Yes, exactly. One of the reasons why. So I built a business, or built a referral network of partners, primarily real estate agents, in northeastern New Jersey, close to New York City. And I've done transactions in New York throughout the 5 boroughs. That's kind of how I started cutting my teeth in the business, in the industry. And then about 10 years ago, actually, is when I decided to kind of go out on my own and build my own book. So at the time, it was, and I still do a lot of the same things now that I did then, but at the time it was throwing a suit on 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week, getting out there, visiting real estate offices, buyer open houses, broker tour inspections, whatever you want to call it. And essentially, advertising my services to real estate professionals who would then in turn refer their buyers and sometimes sellers who are looking to do some mortgage stuff to a mortgage advisor, to a person that they could trust with their mortgage needs. And when I met my wife and she started coming down to Hilton Head with my family and myself on vacation, she fell in love with this place immediately. And so we started to kind of talk about what our longer term plans were. The longer term plans actually got sped up and started to become more of a shorter term thing. About 7 years ago, we lost my father-in-law out of nowhere, and I just kind of like inspired me to say, what am I going to wait for? If this is where we're happy and this is where we want to spend most of our time, let's just get on it. Let's get going.
Did you make that decision while you were down here visiting?
Not necessarily while I was down here. I mean, probably 7 or 8 or more years ago at this point, we started looking at some houses.
It was already in the works.
Yeah, it was
and
kind
you're
of
like, let's just, if we're going to do it.
Exactly. It was in the back of our mind. And originally, my goal was like 2020. Obviously, 2020 threw us all a major curveball. But that even was actually good because it ramped up, our search. And I would say, by the time we came back down, it was Columbus Day weekend of 2020. And that's when we basically said, I put the checkbook in my bag. I said, this is a business trip. We're not coming back without putting a deposit down on the house. We had started looking into new construction because there wasn't a ton of inventory similar to how there is now. But
it sounds familiar.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So a little over 2 years since I've been here. I got my whole family down here. My parents are in HHP, my sister, my brother, my cousin.
Did you start the train?
I started the train.
Okay.
Yeah. My mom wasn't difficult to convince. My mom put her near the beach. She's good to go.
Yeah.
My dad's my dad's sort of the patriarch of his family. So, used to, doing a lot of things to help out, his sisters and their kids and so on and so forth. So that took a little bit more convincing, but I can honestly say he hasn't looked back. And for my father, who actually had a stroke towards the end of 21, it's been a godsend because he's, he's working at the golf course a couple days a week. He's got Knights of Columbus one day, an Italian American club another day, and, all this other kind of stuff that he's doing. And, my family's really thriving. Like I said, my siblings are here. My cousin, they live in New Riverside at Heritage, and I got it's great. I got my whole family down here. It's kind of like I would say the best mood that I was ever in when I was getting into town, into Savannah, especially coming over the bridge, right?
Yeah.
And then the worst mood that I was ever in was when I had to leave, when I was coming back out and heading back up to New Jersey.
My dad always said when he'd come down here, he's in the best mood, and by the time he hit the Delaware Memorial Bridge, it put him in the worst mood.
It's true.
Going back to Jersey.
And listen, we're Jersey boys, I like to say, not to begrudge New Jersey. It's a beautiful place. I lived there for 40,
born and raised
40 plus years, other than, college for 4 years in Boston. But
it's not the same.
It's just not the same. There are certain things that I miss. I miss my buddies at the deli. I miss, my cousin and a handful of friends and things like that. But that's what visits are for.
Exactly.
And I head back up a couple of times a year, just like I know you do, just to, reconnect and things like that. And, but I couldn't be happier being, especially in this town specifically. I mean, I love Hilton Head, obviously, but Bluffton is very quickly earned a special place in my heart. And
yeah.
I really love being a part of this town, part of this community.
Coming here in 2014 when my parents bought a house here. Okay. And, I feel bad. The girls that work in the office here right behind us, they've been here way longer, most of their lives. And I'm like, they must hate us.
You don't meet too many native.
No, it's like
Hilton
Florida
Head,
people.
Right. It's true.
Florida man's in jail usually, and everybody else is from Jersey,
exactly,
New York.
Exactly.
Yeah.
New Jersey, New York. Obviously,
It's rare.
You got Jevon's song, Oh Mio, Oh Mio, not from Ohio. We got a lot of people coming down here from there. But yeah, there's, there's obviously locals that have been here for quite a while, but very few that are actually native Hilton Head Islanders or especially Bluftonians. Wasn't there only a population of a few hundred, not even going back that far is what I had heard?
When I moved here, this is how my brain works. When we moved here, it was 2019. They were still running off of the last census numbers, which was saying there was 18,000 people in Bluffton, which I know has changed.
Sure.
I'm a South Jersey guy, so Philadelphia sports. I start thinking Citizens Bank Park holds 62,000 people.
Yep.
There's 18,000 when I moved here off the census. I think we're at like 30 now, right?
Something like that.
So this whole town, over 18, could fill half the stadium, and that stadium could fill up. People could go to all the bars around it, the Xfinity Center all around it, tailgate all around it, and still drive better than everybody in this town if half the people in this town were on the road. It's mind blowing what's going on around here. There's people with. It reminds me of South Florida in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know how often you go down to. I used to live in Delray, and anything south of Jupiter just turns into mayhem on 95.
Yeah.
You have all these different. You have South Americans, Latin Americans, Caribbean, New York, New Jersey visitors.
Yeah.
Mayhem on the roads.
Yeah.
Here, it's just people from different states, and we can't even drive. It's
especially
drives
recently,
me bonkers around here.
Especially recently, it's been kind of crazy. I feel like every week there's some sort of incident or accident.
Sad accident. It's like
I know
stuff that's just like I always joke. I go, "Where are you going? You're going to Hobby Lobby. Slow down, slow down."
And that's exactly how I've thought of it. When people ask me from back home, let's say that when they ask me about, let's say, how far are you from your parents' house? Well, if I'm going to time it, door to door from my house in Lawton Station to my parents in HHP, let's say 35 minutes. But it's not the 35 minutes that you were spending in the car in whether it was North or South Jersey. That's an entirely different thing. I used to commute from when I was still living with my parents in Wyckoff, and then shortly thereafter, I lived in the town right next door called Hawthorne, which is where my father's side of the family is from. I worked for the New Jersey Nets basketball team before they moved to Brooklyn. And I think my commute from my house to the Nets office was 12 miles. And there were some days when it took me over an hour to get there. So it's a very different thing. I mean, I always have to remind myself, like, even if I'm on my way to an appointment or something like that, what's the rush? Whether you're driving on Bluffton Parkway or you decide to take 278 or whatever the case is, that 35 minutes, the example that I gave you, you're driving on Bluffton Parkway. It's nice. It's scenic. You're going over the bridge, whether it's low tide or high tide. Every single
and then
one
a monster truck pulls up behind you and is tailgating you because everybody in the left lane's doing the speed limit, and the guy in the right lane doesn't want to go faster than the guy in the left lane. And then you're getting agitated trying to drive over the bridge and watch the Dolphins jump. I know that drive. It's
given me flashbacks sometimes to when I was in Jersey, except I'm on the other side of it, which is like, just slow down.
Yeah.
Everybody just relax. Like, what do you need to be in that big of a hurry for?
That's why people are like, "Oh, you're from Jersey." I'm like, "Look, I come in peace. All right? I didn't come here to be one of the maniacs."
I'm not into the whole, I think one woman said one day, something to the effect of like something being stolen from us, or it's like, it's being ruined or something like that. And I'm not down with it. It's a free country, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has the ability to, live where they want to live and go where they want to go. And I'm still happy to have chosen this place.
Yeah. Do me a favor. You got a little hair on that microphone. Do you see it?
I do.
Yeah, get that thing, because I don't want that thing tickling your nose all of a sudden. And if people are watching this, they're going to be like, "Dude, look at that hair on his microphone."
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
It's better than a hair on my face or something. Yeah.
I hear you. So, all right. So you've been in the mortgage game for over 15 years.
I'm going to be 17 in October. So yeah,
cool.
It's been a minute.
I have never owned a home. Still don't own one yet. I literally lived on the road 40 some odd weeks out of the year. I had a crash pad I'd pay for rent in Delray, which was awesome, Delray Beach, Florida. And then I would come up for the holidays and visit my family.
Right.
Nice family. I was born and raised in. I always had a place to stay. So I didn't really have to, I just lived in hotels or a little crash pad and a crash pad. now I'm here. This is the first time I've been anywhere for 4 straight years. I think my last stint was LA for like 2, and then I've just been on the road. So I'm in the process of buying a home over in the lakes at New Riverside.
It's beautiful over there.
It's beautiful. Homes are going up. I want to say, I'll put it this way. The homes are going up quick, but the process is not very quick. And I'm learning about the mortgage thing. And it's a K Havanian home. So I'm going through their mortgage. Yep. Look, no builders. We're builders. Nobody's perfect. There's always issues. And I think they are, as a production builder, they're doing the best they can. I'm not saying I'm enjoying the process, you have been very vocal about your experiences, and I try to stay positive. And I think it's more just like, I just want to move in. I want to get into my house. I'm done my rent at the end of this month. It was supposed to be done last month. And then, it was supposed to be done last month. And then as soon as I gave them the deposit and the mortgage guy asked, what is the closing date looking like? They bumped it up like a month and a half, 2 months, which took me out of the promotional marketing period for the rate lock that they were going to give me.
When you say bumped you up, like that was like be
when I sat down, it was 5.25% promotional interest rate.
Yeah.
And then up at Malin Bluff, it was like 4 something, right?
Yeah.
And we just liked the lakes better. We were between those two, solely based off of, A, floor plans, B, interest rate.
Sure.
Right? I sit down with the guy, 5.25%. I'm in. Still, it's going to run me a little tight, honestly, at 5.25, but I know rates will go down. As soon as I give them the deposit, mortgage guy says, all right, where are we looking on closing date? CC'd on the email. They bumped that date up, took me out of the promotional period because they won't lock you in at anything.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So they got what they wanted and they did whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
And that's just killing me right now because now they're giving me like, oh, you're at a 60-day rate lock for 7.86%. I had a YouTube what the hell a rate lock was. They don't tell you what it is. And I started this part of the conversation with never owned a home before.
Yeah.
I don't know terminology.
Yeah.
Right. I have friends who are mortgage lenders that run the mortgage companies, but this isn't putting anybody down, but nobody's educated me, right? Like I'm not taking you out to lunch, be like, tell me all about mortgages, right? Like it's just,
I would.
I know you would. I think any of them would.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm getting hit with this rate lock thing and I have to buy into it. So I have to pay money to get to a 7.86 interest rate. I don't even understand how this works. And then how are rates down at 6.5 or something right now? And they're trying to sell me on the good idea of paying money to lock myself in to not exceed that rate when I already know it's going to go lower. How does that work?
Just out of curiosity, just one qualifying question. So at this moment, what are they anticipating the closing date's going to be?
The last I've heard, and this is where things are a little weird. Yeah. To answer your question the best I can, the last I've heard was the 24th range within a few days of the 24th of this month. We are nowhere near that. Huh. And to the flip side of why I couldn't answer that super directly, they're only giving me 60-day out locks, not even 45 or 30s, when supposedly I'm less than 15 away from closing. So that's what's making things very confusing.
Something's a little amiss here. Yeah, without getting into too much.
Hold on one second. I'm putting the fan on.
Okay, go ahead.
It is. Are you getting hot? I'm dying. I'm going to try to put it near the door so we can suck that air in. Are they still in here? Mandy's here. I'll leave the door open. Okay, Mandy, cool. You can jump in on the show if you'd like to say something. We're melting in here. I'm sorry.
Without getting into too much of the nitty gritty, and we'll talk offline more specifically about your terms and things like that. I think the takeaway here is, without even referring to any of one builder developer specifically, I think the operative word here is communication and setting the proper expectation. I used to have a mentor, a sort of a manager mentor that I, when I first started learning the business, used to use this term under promise and over deliver. Yeah. Right. So if someone tells you, like I was told, January, and that turned into ultimately April for me. And at the end of the day, for my own personal experience, I think I only lost like 1/8% or something like that. What you're talking about is obviously a substantial, significant difference. And, we'll talk offline and I'll give you the best way to kind of approach that situation. But I think at the end of the day, you're right. A lot of them are doing the best they can, given the circumstances, what they're dealing with, and especially, I don't know. I think you're in the business. It's fair to say that a lot of the COVID excuses are probably not necessarily as bad. Like supply chain,
still lingering.
They're still lingering a little bit.
The excuses are lingering,
but from your end, you're seeing that like supply chain's not as big of an issue.
Supply chain's not an issue,
a couple of years
but
ago.
they'll use it as an excuse,
right?
And no different. Like some stuff has gone down price wise, but they still use it as an excuse to keep the prices up. They'll never go down,
right?
It's just wild.
Right. I think that the best advice that I can give you and anyone that's in the situation that you're in, because I have friends that are actually buying in this area and friends that are buying in other areas, like my buddy up in Chicago, is get a second opinion, because the incentives that the developers offer for mortgages, like the credits towards closing costs and things like that, they all sound great, and it's great to think that you could save $5,000 or $10,000 in closing costs, but there's usually something attached to that. For example, the rates that they're offering are typically a little bit higher than market. So we'll give you this much money towards your closing costs, but if you look at it and you model it at where you would be at a rate that's pushing 7% compared to if you were to come to me today and I were to say, somewhere in, let's just say the mid sixes or something like that. Again, we don't know exactly what the criteria is, but there's definitely a premium to utilizing that option. And if you look at it in terms of, okay, fine, I can save $5,000 to $10,000 today.
Yeah.
But how much is that higher interest rate costing me over the term of the loan? Now, I want to qualify that by saying everybody gets caught up in 30 years, 360 months, all this other. That's 10 years in the mortgage world is an eternity. But if you just look at it starting from that perspective, even if you say, how much is this going to cost me over the first 5 to 10 years of the loan, there can be a pretty big disparity there. So I've had a friend in Chicago say, I have my guy at this mortgage company, and then I have my builder's guy. This one's here and this one's there. And I kind of coached him into what, and listen, I can see things from the other side. I know what that particular lender or that loan originator that they're talking to, I know that they're most often probably trying to do the best that they can, but lenders, banks, mortgage companies, all these different entities have a different structure and a different sort of way of approaching things. And I think it's good to get sound advice from a person that you trust. And even in those situations where I don't stand anything to gain, I'm not doing the mortgage for either of these people, but I'm going to, they're friends of mine. I'm going to give them advice. I just had one actually text me, earlier today, we're floating, should we lock? And I advise them to lock because there's a volatile market. We have movements, in either directions that can be pretty substantial and pretty significant. And I am not the type of person, at least in the experience that I have, I wouldn't be playing the market is what I'm saying in this type of scenario. So I advised him to lock. He's probably about, maybe about 60 days away from closing or something like that. There's obviously a difference between closing something short term and something further term out. We'll talk about our builder locks and things like that.
So let's do this real quick.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be very helpful.
Sure.
For folks. It's a hard market to buy in right now, right?
Extremely challenging.
So I feel like being as educated on this area as you are, what are some things folks moving here need to know? And, of course, there's the basics, like find a lender down there, find your realtor, all that I think everybody gets. But, I didn't know what a rate lock was. And they were sending me rate lock stuff for a month now.
Yeah.
Maybe a little shorter. But I had to YouTube it in the garage yesterday. when I was like I'm pre-moving into Melissa's mom's house just to have an interim place to put my stuff without getting a storage unit. Yeah, staging for the next stage. Yeah. And I had to watch like 2 YouTube videos to explain what a rate lock was. So I think if I don't know what it is, and a lot of folks are really only able to get new builds from tract builders, right? National builders. Can you maybe break down what I should have known going into this, or other people might need to know working with these kind of builders? Absolutely.
So we'll start with a rate lock. So we get questions all week, like day in and day out, right? What's your rate? Mm-hmm. What's your rate today? Well, I need some information before I'm going to give you that. And a couple of the pieces of information to start off, the loan criteria that we look at is what's the purchase price of the property? What's the loan amount? What's the loan to value? We take those 2 numbers, and that's how we figure out what the loan to value is. You're putting 20% down, your loan to value is 80%. You're putting 10% down, your loan to value is 90%. What's your credit score? Because that's obviously going to be factored into determining what your interest rate is going to be. Property type is important too, because condos price out differently than, single family homes, and a lot of townhomes or townhouses have condo characteristics. It's basically how the property is deeded and things like that. And then of course, the thing that I always mention to people is, when is your estimated closing date? Because what the lender is doing on our end is we're making what's called a best efforts commitment to deliver a closed mortgage by a certain date. So when I ask, when is your closing taking place? If they tell me, well, it's happening within, let's say today is, early May. Let's say that we're looking at a closing at the end of June. I know that I can lock that rate in for 60 days, and I can reasonably anticipate that closing will take place before that rate lock expires. And the reason why I say that is because the rate lock, like I said, the lender or the bank is making its best efforts to deliver that closed mortgage, because a lot of this stuff is being sold and securitized in the secondary market by the government agencies, or will retain actually the servicing rights. As a bank, you're servicing, your loan would stay with U.S. Bank for servicing, but the money goes to, at least on a conventional conforming loan basis, that money's going to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. That's mostly the same for most banks and lenders. So what you're doing is you're saying that we should have this loan packaged and be ready to go. We're going to close it by a certain date. But we all know, especially when you're involved in the world of new construction, that is something that can sometimes it can change. We were anticipating these supplies. We thought we were going to get these materials. We thought this was going to happen by a certain date. There's a lot of moving parts. So the reason why I say that is because there's a cost associated with, if you don't meet that deadline, and let's say your rate lock is going to expire on June 30th and your loan hasn't closed by June 30th. Well, the lender at that point has to make a decision. The loan officer has to say, okay, we're going to extend this rate lock. We do it in increments of 15 days. But there's a cost associated with that. So there are certain instances where a lender may cover the cost of an extension or two. Usually that's dictated by what direction that the market's gone. And usually we're sort of given limits as far as, how deep we can go to, because obviously from the mortgage lender's perspective, from the loan officer's perspective, we don't want to be spending your money. You're spending enough money as it is, closing costs and all the things that are associated with moving. You're going through it right now. Everything has a cost to it. Movers, everything. So we're trying to mitigate the cost, but the reality is that once that rate lock expires, one of two things is going to happen. One, you're going to let it expire and have to relock it at current market.
You don't get your money back.
Well, no. Well, here's the thing. It all depends. As for U.S. Bank, we actually don't charge for rate locks unless
I'm already getting
unless we're going further out. Now, I can't speak to how other companies do certain things.
You're charging for 60.
No.
Okay.
The actually the only upfront deposits that we take are on 180, 270, and 360 day locks.
I'm getting ran. I didn't give them money though.
Yet.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Well, for the like rate lock.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to say banks, but let's say some mortgage lenders will charge to lock in a rate. We're not charging for 45, 60, 75, 90-day rate locks. Those are standard. We're not charging for those. So is that like,
I don't want to put them down, but I feel like I'm dealing with like a bad used car dealership. I feel like they got the little quad and they're like, if you move the numbers here and there and then you do this and we're giving you a discount here, and it looks like a football play all of a sudden. And you're like, they confuse you at the table.
Sometimes it can be a little bit of a maze. Like I'm sure if I took a look at it, I could probably make sense of it for you and point you in the right direction. Yeah. But this is what I'm saying. This is why you got to get a second opinion, and you have to have someone
which I did
take
do.
A look at that.
I will say, because I was working. You know Annie Ryan.
Absolutely, she's great, tremendous.
So I was working with her for like the last year and a half. We were on and off buying a house.
Yes.
And so I called her after they hit me with the rate lock thing. And she's like, I never heard a number that high to lock in. And I was like, why would I lock it in? She said, well, you wouldn't. Our lock-in rates for that. And she told me it was much lower. So I'm like, again, I reached out. I asked a friend. And because I was like, well, should I go with you guys? Because they already have all my information. They got some of the process started. She's like, well, the thing is like you were saying, the money they give you off. So it was like 18 grand in incentives you'll lose if you don't go with our lender. And then you start doing that math on the mortgage calculator. You're paying more to go with another lender now. So they got you just close enough where if you're trying to pinch $150, $200 a month, which I think is a lot of money a month. Of
course. Yeah.
It's like a seafood tower every month at Skull Creek. Do you know what I mean? Like that's how I look at life. I love them. It's tough. It's a weird place to be. Let me ask you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any like hacks? Any ways to cut to the chase and get the best number, and not necessarily with you, right? Because I'm not trying to have you hack yourself, but with some of these bigger builders to try to get more transparency.
I'm always going to put my best foot forward in terms of what I quote. We get compensated a fixed percentage of the loan amount, and it doesn't do us any good to quote someone a rate that's above market. So I always say I'm going to do whatever's within my power to get you the lowest rate that I can possibly get you, given the rules that are put in place internally by my employer, obviously, which is U.S. Bank. What I can advise buyers to do is shop it. I prefer when people are transparent and say, listen, this is who I'm working with. This is what I'm getting. Or even sometimes people want to keep it closer to the vest and they don't want to share what it is, the rate that they're getting, but they want to say, what could you do for me today? Now, once you get that in writing, whether it's in an email or a text message, or, ideally, a loan estimate, which you would receive within 3 days of applying with any bank. It's regulation, it's disclosure requirements that you get a what used to be called a good faith estimate. Now they call it a loan estimate within 3 days of the application. Getting stuff like that in writing and going to your loan originator, to your loan officer, and saying, this is what I'm being offered by this lender or this company. Could you match it? Could you, what?
So there's some haggle to it.
There is.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Do I still have room to haggle?
I would say so. I mean, unless you've signed documents at the closing table, you have the ability to. Listen, I don't remember what movie it was where they say everything's a negotiation.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'll think of it. I'll look it up later. But these are the things that are always running through my head, and it'll preoccupy me for hours at a time. Where did I hear that song? Where did I see that line from? Whatever. But yes, get other quotes, and you can certainly go. Like I said, I coached my one friend who was dealing with a builder's lender and then his own mortgage guy, gal, whatever, up in Illinois, suburban Chicago. And for his, it was actually pretty cool because they said to him, you have X $1,000 to work with. You can put that towards, we can reduce the price, or we can put it towards your closing costs. And as we were going through having this conversation, I said to my friend, ask them what your rate would be if you took that X $1,000 and paid that amount in points.
Hold on. What would my rate be?
Right.
All right.
If
I paid
you
in
took
points.
not necessarily the entire closing cost credit that because $18,000 that's quite a bit. No, I don't think any bank could ever charge $18,000 in points. That would fail numerous tests that we have to do. Yeah. But let's just say that you even took $10,000 of that $18,000 and you bought down points.
And go ahead.
One point is equivalent to 1% of your loan amount that you're looking to borrow.
Something else I learned the hard way.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're paying points, your 0 point rate today might be that 7 whatever mark. But if you're paying the discount points to buy that rate down, because yes, you're going to still end up having to pay more in closing costs if they take that credit and apply it towards an additional closing cost, which in this case would be the points. But for my buddy's example, it was a scenario where over the term of the loan, he would have saved $50,000 to $60,000 in interest by buying down points, because for him, it wasn't such a big deal for him to have to pay an extra $5,000 to $10,000 in closing costs. So I said, go back to them and say, well, what if you took this credit and instead of putting it towards my purchase price, my loan amount, or instead of putting it towards my closing costs, if you were to charge me points and you took this much of the credit or the entire credit, depending on how much it is, and put it towards discount points to buy down the rate, we ended up in a situation where he was definitely from the start of the conversation. This is going back several weeks. From the start of the conversation, we were basically pushing like a 7 handle, and he was able to get ultimately, below 6% on a 30-year fixed from one of those lenders, and he was over the moon. I mean, he was thrilled. But these are not things that he ever thought to ask or even bring up when he was going through the process. Because, like you said, he didn't know. He hadn't gone through this process. Remember, I live this. This is literally, I eat, sleep, and breathe mortgage. Most people, what they know is what they see on the internet, what they read in the paper, if people are reading papers anymore, and things like that. And there's a lot of noise out there. That's why you got to kind of...
It's all sensationalism.
It is, exactly.
That's why I'm cutting to the chase. So let me ask you a really sensationalist question then.
Let's do it.
Could you just give me some like crazy rate, sign it, I won't go with you, I'm not going to hold you to it, but then I could take it to them and be like, look, I can get 3 now.
That is,
I think the answer is no. I was more joking. But.
That's where we get into the compliance of it all.
No, I'm not trying to get you fired, bro. I'm just joking.
Because if that's the important thing is, if you're going to disclose something, you got to make sure that you're going to deliver that to the customer. And that's where it's a very competitive business, right? It's a competitive industry. I've seen on some unscrupulous things out there. Because I have a handle on what the rates are on a daily basis. And sometimes, they change every day.
Where are they at today?
Today.
The 9th of May, 2023. Where are we at?
The 9th of May. This is where you have to be very careful because I'm going to get myself into trouble. But if you're looking at, generally.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
No. It's I think ranges are okay when it comes to this stuff. We're not going to give exact numbers because that's where we get into trouble.
Do they fluctuate throughout the day?
Sometimes they do.
Okay.
Like we thought we were going to have a reprice for the worst this afternoon. I think that you're in right now, generally speaking, you're probably somewhere in the mid to high 6s. Again, it also depends on how long the rate needs to be locked for. And all these different criteria such as credit score and things like that. But that's the range we've been trading in for quite a while now. Mid to high 6s. Just in general. But you have to make sure that you're getting, up to the minute information, because something that you might have gotten a couple of days to a week ago might no longer be valid. So, the thing that I like to say when I'm in situations, in competitive situations, is that sounds like it might be competitive or whatever the case is, but just make sure it's locked for a period of time that's going to accommodate your closing date. One of the tactics is we'll quote like a 15-day rate lock just to get you in the door. but nobody's turning around a loan from start to finish in 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
Right. So basically, you want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples.
So let me ask you this. If I'm working with these guys and they're only showing me 60 days and supposedly I'm supposed to be done by the end of this month even, right? Like, is that still enough time to make that deal happen?
Oh, yeah,
If they're
definitely.
throwing me 60s, but then, like you said, you can't get it done in 15 days.
Well, I mean, I would ask, what's your shorter term rate locks that you have available? I mean, the shortest we go is 45.
That's
we
what
don't
I was
go
going
any
to
shorter than that.
But can I ask them, because this is something, as you were speaking, I was like, wait, can I just ask them this? Can I just ask, what would your rate, if we were be able to close today, what's your rate?
Right. What would your shortest rate lock term if I was
Or not even a lock. If we were
week?
closing today, could they say it's whatever is on MS or CNBC's site? How does that work?
No. So basically, what they have to do is there's you wouldn't be able to, like, say, for example, because you have to disclose the terms, and then you have to wait 3 days to close. Basically, once those terms are, that's why we'll send out like a closing disclosure for compliance purposes. Has to be received and acknowledged by the borrower at least 3 days before closing. Okay. So they wouldn't be able to say, okay. I mean, let's still say if today is Tuesday. Yeah, today you could get a quote if they issued you the disclosure and you acknowledge the disclosure today, then you would be able to close on Friday. But I would say, yeah, there's some, we need to kind of, like I said, we'll talk offline, we'll resolve. There's somewhat of a gray area between why are we quoting 60 days when we're looking to be closing significantly shorter than that.
It's so confusing.
I think I'm missing a piece to the puzzle. And that's how people get confused, and that's how people get frustrated, because they don't know the terminology and they're not familiar with the business. And that's where we come in to kind of guide them, in the right direction.
And I'm not trying to talk trash about them, but and that guy, he already told me he's sending out hundreds of these a day. You know what I mean? Just him. And he doesn't have a lot of time for me. Even though I deserve the time, I don't feel like I deserve much in life, but at least explain to me what the hell a rate lock is when you're trying to sell me on a rate lock.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Like, I don't know what this is. You're telling me. And then would you lock a rate in right now, 60 days out in my scenario at 7.86% and spend like $3,000 to do so?
I don't know that I would be spending money for a rate lock fee.
Yeah.
When it's in that short period of time. But again, I can't speak to the specific requirements. What I would say is I did my due diligence and I have this in writing from this person. Okay. This is what someone gave me today. What can you guys do about this? Because you don't want to leave money on the table that you could be using as a credit towards closing costs. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're getting something that's indicative of what the current market is.
How do you garner a credit towards closing costs? Is that haggleable? Is that talking into a dealable towards the end, or is it, how's that work?
Well, typically those guys are offering that stuff upfront standard.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I mean, I tend to, when I'm quoting rates, I tend to say, this is what my rate is. This is my 0-point rate. If you want credits towards closing costs and things like that, well, we can go up from there. And if you want to pay points, we can go down from there. But this is basically what you would be today without costing you anything beyond what your standard closing costs are.
Gotcha.
Which, there's a decent amount in there that you're paying for title insurance and recording fees, settlement charges. All those are dictated by your settlement agent, by your attorney. But I think the lesson to be learned is that there is an element of negotiation to this, and it's a competitive business. So, you're a customer that deserves to get, the best offer that's available from that particular provider, whomever that is.
So you feel the best negotiation tool is to get another quote. And this isn't just for me. I just saying in general for other people to shop around, see that quote. If you've already, why would you not just jump with the cheaper guy, the cheaper quote? Would it be in a situation like this where they're offering you the program credits or whatever?
Credit towards
so you want to keep that credit, but say, hey, here's the rate I'm getting from U.S. Bank down the street.
And I think that also what is a part and parcel to this is just in general for customers is what's the level of service that you're getting? Because the lowest rate sounds great, but what if you can't get answers to questions that you have as you're going through the process? And what if, I have built, not to toot my own horn, but part of what has helped me build my business is providing a very high level of customer service. And I've been fortunate enough, I'm grateful to have accumulated 260, I think I hit 260 on the nose the other day. I'm waiting for another one to come in any day now for something that closed last week, but 265 star reviews on Zillow. And those are my customers going to the Zillow platform to review me based on the level of service that they received. So I always say, we're going to be competitive in terms of rate. We're going to be competitive in terms of fees, but we're going to give you the best level of service that's available in the marketplace. And that's why I rely on my real estate partners, my past customers, and other professionals in my network that work in industries parallel to mortgage. That's why they're referring me to their customers, because yes, they know they're going to get a good rate. They know that the fee is going to be competitive with the industry, because that's the only thing that varies from lender to lender. What's your origination charge? What's your bank fee? But more importantly, or most importantly, in my opinion, I'm not saying everybody's like this when they're shopping for a mortgage, is what kind of service are you going to get? Are you going to have someone that's going to answer those questions as you're going through the process? Because I've gone through it myself, and I am, I can be, just ask my insurance guy or, people that you deal with on a regular basis. Like, I was texting my insurance guy the other night at midnight because my homeowner's policy wasn't showing up on my app, and I was able to figure it out. And he emailed me back the next day. He said, "You're all squared away with this." I said, "Yeah, I just had a little bit of a panic because my homeowner's insurance policy wasn't showing up in the app, and I was just making sure that somehow I didn't."
What was going on Saturday night at midnight where that was like the worry of your life, though? What are you doing?
Honestly,
it just hit you?
I was just laying in bed. I'm dealing with a little bit of a sleeping disorder. So as I got my CPAP scenario squared away, and I kind of settling in,
home insurance, freaking yourself out.
I got an email that said something, and I clicked through, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't showing up. And I just we had made a change in the policy, and I just basically had to re-enter the policy number, and it popped right back in there.
But it was a ghost until then,
exactly,
which would freak me out too. So I just didn't know if you're laying in bed going like, I wonder if my insurance policies in my
right, no, exactly.
There's more to the story. It makes sense.
By an email, but yeah, the thing is that that's what we're here for. Is I know that when I went through the process, you have questions that you want answers so that you can make informed decisions. So I have friends, like I said, I'm not even doing their mortgage because of whatever reason. They're buying from a builder, or they were connected in this area that they moved to with a certain person from their real estate agent, whatever the reason is. They know that they can rely on me to give them answers to their questions. And that's what my customers know. That's what my real estate partners, the real estate professionals that I work with, realtors know that they can count on me basically 24/7, 365 to give them answers to these questions so that they can advise their customers, their buyers, their clients, so that they can make informed decisions in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
Is really.
Do you get upset when somebody goes with another mortgage lender? Does it bug you? Because I'm going to put it this way. It makes me sweat. Because I went with Annie because I shot a lot of Tanner's videos, and she was working for Tanner, and she was very personable, right? Like you're talking, and she's an awesome chick. So
I can't say enough good things
I was just like, and I kind of went to her because I knew that she would just answer a question for me without trying to sell me,
right?
And she did. So then I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna work with her,
right?
But then I'm like, there's you got Addison, right? You got some big names in the air, small bone tie. Bow tie loan guy, and
he's great too.
He is great people in this town.
He's great at marketing himself.
He is, and so are you,
and so is Andy.
And so is
Thank
she.
you.
But the hard part is, I'm friendly with all of you. I don't want to let anybody down. This reminds me when people are inviting me to their churches.
Yeah,
because I started getting back into religion a little bit in Christianity, and everybody's like, "Bro, come to my church. Come to my church. Come to my church." I'm like, "What time? 9. I'm like, I'm gonna piss somebody off. Yeah. I haven't gone yet. Yeah. So it's like I don't want to offend somebody. Does it bug you, or do you just like, it's part of the game? I get it.
I will say 16 and a half years in, I've gotten a lot better at reacting or not reacting, and how I respond to things like that. I used to have a little bit of, I don't want to call it an attitude, but I value my time, and especially when there's certain people that they have a lot of questions, you put a lot of time into it, you're committed and devoted to trying to win their business. I think the only thing that still bothers me a little bit at this point in my career is when you put that time in and someone just kind of, ghosts you and disappears on you, and maybe you find out from a social media post or second or third hand that they decided to go somewhere else. Exactly. Going back to what we said before. I don't have any problem with a person, with a buyer, shopping, doing their due diligence.
You're popular.
And
your phone's been blowing up. That watch is just blinging.
It's all good. This is the longest period of time where you won't see me respond to a text or an email or a phone call when I'm doing something like this. No, you're good, man. They know that I'll get back to them as soon as I walk out the door, which is why they come to me. But I think that transparency is the operative word here. If you're shopping, which most people are, I always expect that people are going to be shopping, which is why I always put my best foot forward. But I think what I've learned over time and the wisdom that I've been able to accumulate and acquire over time is that there's always reasons behind everything. Some of them we know about, some of them we don't know about. Everyone's going to make decisions based on the criteria that's important to them. And I think you show a lot in terms of how you can graciously accept rejection. And I think that we're talking about one transaction for one customer. I can honestly say that I've gotten referrals in the past from customers that have chosen not to work with me because maybe they got a credit from this other lender, or maybe something happened, or whatever, for whatever reason. And I think that you show a lot about who you are professionally and to an extent personally by how you react and respond to those things. I mean, of course it stings. You put time in, we don't get paid, we don't get compensated unless a loan closes. So there's a lot of work that we do that may feel like we're not getting, but every single person that you speak to is going to be an opportunity for closed business at some point in time. And I think that you earn a lot of respect in situations like that based on the way that you handle it. There's been deals that I've worked on for over a year that have fallen through. There's one that I'll never forget. It was a transaction that I did in New York. It was very complicated, consolidating 3 mortgages and so on and so forth. And it was a hard lesson to learn. The woman was actually almost in tears when she decided that she, for whatever reason, that she wanted to cancel. It was cost related and New York specific mortgage tax and things like that. But a lot of these experiences are what, how we sort of develop the character. Like you said, when we got this started was the character. Yeah. The character is not all the fun and games and what we attract other people to by what we're doing from a marketing perspective. I think the character is also how you represent yourself professionally to a prospective customer. And I think that if you do things the right way, at the end of the day, I think the business is going to come and the opportunities are going to come your way. But I think that there can definitely be, we're human beings. There can be a tendency, because it's competitive, there can be a tendency to, if you lose a particular deal to someone else, to have a little bit of frustration. But what I've learned is not to dwell on it.
Is it cutthroat out here?
Oh, yeah.
Is it?
It's super competitive. I mean, this is an area that has been very challenging for me to penetrate for 2 reasons. One, it's a big place, but it's also a very small place. To a certain extent, everybody knows everybody, and there's a lot of people in this area that have been, just like there's a lot of real estate agents, but there's a lot of people that are in mortgage that have been around for a while, right? And so then there's also, it's a relationship business. You have someone that's been selling real estate in Hilton Head and Bluffton or more so Hilton Head, I guess, but 20 to 25 years, they have their guy or their girl, and that's who they use. And in those situations, I present myself as, well, just consider me as an alternative. Maybe they don't offer construction to permanent financing. Maybe they don't have wealth management or private wealth options. Maybe they don't do lot financing, things like that. So I try to differentiate myself. I try to open doors by, making sure that I remind people what I have that other people might not have. And I also think that I'm in a very unique position because most of the players, so to speak, in the marketplace are mortgage companies. Or smaller, localized regional banks. All these different types of lenders have different characteristics. So you have mortgage companies. For example, you mentioned Annie. Movement Mortgages, they're a big player. They recently acquired Mortgage Network, who was another big player. And by virtue of that, you're talking about one entity that's, don't quote me on the numbers, probably upwards of about 50 to 60, loan originators in the market at this point. U.S. Bank, it's me.
Yeah.
There's a couple guys up in Mount Pleasant. I think we brought a guy on recently who's on Hilton Head. But I represent a national bank. And really, there's not a whole lot of options for national banks with a local presence. We have TD Bank on the island. Catherine Omans and Matt Webster, I know personally, and both of them are great. They do a lot of construction lending as well and things like that. But there's customers that prefer to work with a mortgage company. There's customers that prefer to work with a bank. There's customers that prefer to work with the smaller local regional bank that they walk in and that they have their checking or their savings account or CDs with or whatever. So I think that there's a place in the market for all of these people. I also think that, remember, just like we talked about before, we have a large influx of people coming in from the Northeast, people coming in from the Midwest, people that are relocating here from areas that banks are more predominantly the popular mortgage lenders. So if you have someone coming from Ohio, they might have had a mortgage with U.S. Bank. You have someone coming from the Northeast, where I came from, they might have had a car loan or a credit card with U.S. Bank.
Good brand identity there. That's already been built up there.
Yeah, there's a familiarity there. I think we were the last, I'm positive, we were the last company in the United States to be able to use U.S. or United States in their name, at least in terms of like financial institutions. Huh. Yeah, it goes back to, my manager is a big history buff, so we learn little tidbits and factoids from him.
Is that why the Fed's not called the U.S. Fed? Because it's not even really part of the U.S.
I'm not really sure. That's not my area of expertise, but I'm sure Dave would probably know the answer.
My conspiracy theory mind starts going.
It's a recognizable brand, So, and I've had experiences in the past where I may have worked for places where the name didn't exactly roll off the tongue. But if you didn't know who U.S. Bank was in this area 2 years ago, chances are now.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I try to walk that fine line between being persistent and being annoying, but I looked at it as it was my responsibility when I came down into this area to try to build a business here and to grow my business in this area. It was my responsibility to spread the word, who we are, what we do, and more specifically, who I am and what I bring to the table. Literally and figuratively.
Speaking of which, what'd you bring to the table?
So one of the things that I do when I'm out there, when I'm out and about, is we have a lot of really great, promotional swag, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of times when I meet with prospective real estate partners, I was raised never to show up empty-handed. That's just the way it is with me, with my upbringing. So whenever I meet with not necessarily just real estate professionals, builders like yourself, and other people that are work in industries parallel to mortgage and real estate, is promotional items. We got a duffel bag here.
That's for all the cash bricks.
Yes,
for the mortgage. You just start stacking the dough in there.
We got a golf cooler.
Oh, there's something else in the bag.
Even if you're not a golfer,
what's a golf
which I'm
cooler?
Not. It's just a cooler that, well, let's put it this way. It's a really good cooler.
Let me see this thing. I have no idea what this is. Thank you, by the way.
Out there, slip it right out of there. There's a cooler pack in there. Probably can fit.
Are we keeping the balls cold? Like what?
No, it's for drinks.
Where's this is go in your bag somehow, I guess?
It could strap. You can attach
There's
it
more
to the
stuff.
bag. That's the cool pack. Yeah. They got some really nice stuff. I like to, part of this business is, like I said, the swag. When I go to real estate offices, you hear that zipper? It's a nice zipper.
Cool, thank you.
When I go, you're welcome, buddy. When I go to visit real estate offices or I go to events, and sometimes we have door prizes and things like that, I like to give out stuff that has legs. I like to, if you go into any real estate office in Hilton Head or Bluffton, You're going to find memo pads, Post-it notes, pens, all that kind of stuff. It's going to have my name on there, my phone number, my email address, my NMLS license, unique identifier number, which is a compliance thing. And you'll see that all over the place. And it's by design. Yeah. I used to go, back when I was still up in New Jersey, I would go to real estate offices that would have my memo pads from, one or two employers. I haven't been at very many stops, but they would have previous employers and they would still have my memo. And listen, it still works. Even though I didn't work for that particular company or whatever it was anymore. Like I said, the stuff that has legs, the stuff that you can meet with someone, here's a gift bag with some goodies and things like that in it, coolers, duffel bags, beach towels, all kinds of different stuff like that.
I saw your card at Wasabi on Sunday.
Did you?
Yeah. I went to get some sushi, and I'm sitting there, and I'm doing the Apple Pay thing, and I'm waiting for it to go through, and I look over, and the lone wolf is in my face.
I was waiting for my sushi pickup, which Wasabi's a popular choice of ours, and I saw Addison had his cards there.
He did?
A couple of my realtor friends had their stuff there, and I saw an opportunity. There was an empty slot. You're in sales. You always have a handful of business cards on you.
I may have put my card on top of somebody else's before.
I may or may not have done the same, but I definitely didn't put it in front of someone that had a decent stack left over. I think they might have had just one left or something. But listen, any of those opportunities that you have, I feel like I always look at it like there's different tools on your tool belt. You got social media. Obviously, there's a lot of direct mail opportunities. I send out weekly newsletters to a number of the agents that I work with.
While you're chatting, pull up the song.
I will.
Because this is what I'm going to roll into next.
This
keep going.
Yes.
We're just going to switch over to this, or you want to keep going?
No, let's do it.
All right.
This is...
Because we're talking marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the juice of your marketing here.
It's one of the tools on your tool belt that you're using to get your name out there. So you can send out emails,
I think I can
social
play
media
it
posts.
Off of this player.
Let's see.
I think I'm hooked up. It's either that or it's the speaker in the toilet room. We have a toilet fan that has a Bluetooth speaker in it. So I'm either hooked up to that or this. We're going to find out real quick. It says I am hooked up to 3 Bluetooth devices. Am I hooked up? I am hooked up to the Rodecaster Pro. Okay. Nice. Let's see if I can get this going. Come on, give me something. Oh, there it is.
Well, that's Sharks Are Our Homies. That's a different Jevin.
I went to the thing. That's Sharks Are Our Homies. Jevin Daly.
Let's try.
Sharks Are Our Homies. That is not the song. That's your name right there.
That's not it. Hold on 1 second. Let's see.
Oh, man. Jevin, what'd you do? You know what he did? He probably makes songs for everybody and then puts all of his songs back in there when you're not looking.
What is this?
JC can't hear this right now, but it's called Sharks Are Our Homies. Oh, you were Shark Boy in San Diego. This is your song. I'm sending it to the group chat. This is great. So while he's looking for the song, it's Sharks Are Our Homies is still playing. So while Nick's looking for the song, we worked in San Diego. JC came with us, and we had like 4 other guys. I was flying the drone out in La Jolla, and we were following some kayakers and beautiful shots of dolphins jumping out of the water. And JC is always making some smart comments, and he's joking, and he goes, "Oh, is that a shark?" And then everybody in the chat starts getting on him about it not being a shark, and JC's like, "It's a joke," but then he just kept running with it, torturing everybody else, and he's turned into Shark Boy as the nickname, and Sharks Are Our Homies. What is this?
It is a very popular song. I don't know, for some reason it's pulling up, it's shuffling them.
All right, we're gonna quit on that for a second. We'll talk about the show.
We'll come back.
You got me close enough to it. Maybe I'll just keep playing these in the background. I don't know.
Until it pop. I'm not a big Spotify person. I just know that by putting it on Spotify, that's how he was able to.
Nick De Simone theme song. You click on it. Add the playlist. Appears on Nick De Simone theme song radio. Does that feel like an honor? Can I click on this? What if I hit next? And then it's going to give me an ad for Spotify. I may have found
I'm not the biggest Spotify guy, to be honest.
It's the Joe Rogan app.
Is it?
That's what I call it. That's all I have it for.
Okay.
I don't even know how to use the app.
Yeah, I don't use it myself. I just know that I'll tell you what. If you go to my Instagram page.
Instagram?
I just posted something yesterday.
Was it Low Show or Lone Wolf or
Low Country Life?
You got a lot of tags. That's the one thing I will say. Low
Country Life with no W. LO Country Life. The post that I put up yesterday actually has it.
Okay. There it is.
Got it built right into the.
Is it a reel?
No, it's the post from this one right here.
It's in there?
It's
all right, cool. So when I was on Nick's show, somebody talking in the background? Was that Spotify? Oh, yeah. Nick De Simone, the Lone Wolf.
I've been getting a tremendous amount of compliments on the song, and I have to give credit where credit is due. I consulted my buddy Jevin Daly, who's a legend in the low country musicians, grew up on Hilton Head, and Jevin and I became friendly just from going to see him, Thursday nights at Captain Woody's and all the different places, Saturdays, JoJo Squirrel and the Home Pickles at Tiki Hut and things like that. And so we were kind of putting our heads together, and I was coming up with the idea of doing this LO show that I've been doing, this short form interviews. And I just, I commissioned him to put something together that was, kind of indicative of, that something that rocked a little bit. And I can't believe, honestly, that I never heard of the lyrics myself before. Need Alone called De Simone. It rhymes perfectly. And I've been getting a lot of compliments. And
it's awesome.
It's something that, like I said, before we were talking before the show, Will Taylor saw one of my posts the other day. He says, every time I see your name now, I'm thinking of the song, and people come on the show and they're nodding their head and kind of like rocking out a little bit. And it's great. Like I said, it's just something else that to grab your attention, right? Because there's so much stuff that we're sitting there and we're scrolling through our feeds and looking at this stuff. And I think anything that you can do to stand out, to kind of differentiate yourself, especially in a business as competitive as mortgages, to kind of grab people's attention. And then, once you have that, it's like, okay, what's next? What information? So I share a lot of, mortgage specific stuff, but I also kind of pull the curtain back a little bit.
Keep it entertaining.
Exactly.
Which I want to say this, and then I'm going to go into that.
Sure.
This town is not a big town comparatively. But damn, there's a lot of really good self-marketers down here. A lot of really good ones.
Outstanding.
And it's like what you're doing is good, right? Putting you in that outstanding group, but you're trying to always, Addison does great commercials, right?
He's awesome.
His stuff's great. So it's like, you're not like necessarily one-upping him, but you're differentiating yourself still by doing your own thing, right? Like you and I started the show idea almost at the same time by accident.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, doing anything, like I just like learning from people. Like I learned a lot about the mortgage game today. I didn't know it was a haggleable thing. I thought it was just you're getting a rate.
This is what you got.
Yeah. So I just want to go deeper with people by doing this show. Yeah. But Joe's Classic Cuts. I always use him. My cousin Brian, Palmetto Buff. You had him on the show recently.
I had him on.
He's great, and he has his own shtick, and we always joke. He doesn't even put the videos half the time in the right direction on TikTok, and everybody knows him for his videos and his music still, And of course, his great job detailing these vehicles, and he works for some of the best businesses around and folks around. But yeah, man, it's a tough, with technology being so cheap anymore. If you just put a little bit of time into figuring it out, like you did, right? Like you got your garage set up, which is what I'm getting into next. Okay. The competition starts rising.
Right.
I still don't even know how to do a full TikTok. Like my TikTok game ain't strong, but I know Facebook is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Now to your garage and another portion of your life, which makes you love the WWE. You are surrounded in that garage, it's like a shrine of like your favorites, right? Like who's your go-to? Who's your favorite all-time go?
I'm a fan of pro wrestling, period.
Yeah.
WWE is just one of the products that I enjoy. Triple H is my favorite. I would say above all. And the reason why I say that, not to get into too much inside baseball, as they say, but Triple H's nickname is The Game, right? Mm-hmm. He had a famous interview way back when, during one of his feuds and leading into one of his big matches. And the announcer, the commentator, Jim Ross, said something about, playing the game or something. And he says, there was an expletive involved, but he says, I am the game, right? And what that means is that he's a student of the game, okay? So this is a guy that came up in pro wrestling and, made sure that he aligned himself with and learned from the best, not only performers, but some of the best minds in the business. Fast forward all these years later, forced into retirement due to physical issues. I mean, he was literally on death's door in late 2021, I believe it was. Finally came back to work about a year ago, or a little over a year ago this time, which is their big time, WrestleMania season. It's like the Super Bowl of wrestling. Triple H is the chief, I don't know exactly what the title is at this point in time. Chief, in charge, creative officer, talent, whatever you want to call it. He's in charge of the WWE now creatively, and also in charge of their talent roster. So this is a person that not only was one of the most successful pro wrestlers in history, but is now running the show, literally behind the camera. He's still, yes, an on-air character, even though he can no longer, compete, so to speak. Wrestling and a number of pro wrestlers are inspirational to me because they work in an industry that is, they changed the name years ago, and that was a copyright thing with the World Wildlife Fund.
I still call it WWF.
Right. They changed it to World Wrestling Entertainment because it's a form of entertainment. And I know it's a form of entertainment that is often misunderstood. I guess you could say even stereotyped or stigmatized. But when you were out in Los Angeles, like I was a couple of weekends ago.
You did a whole road show.
I mean, they sold 80,000 plus tickets, back-to-back nights, sold out SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, Inglewood specifically, back-to-back nights, and the most lucrative event in terms of the gate and all the bells and whistles associated with it, merchandise, everything like that. They set a record, and so the reason why it's something that I'm passionate about is because it's not just guys and girls performing in the ring, they're in their matches. It's, talent has an opportunity to present themselves to not just the crowd that's in attendance, but the millions of fans all over the world. And they have an opportunity to present themselves in a unique and creative way. And that interaction with the fans, with the public and with the people that support their product, the WWE universe, as they call it, there's a very special connection there. And we learned it firsthand from, the COVID time and during the pandemic when they were having to present shows and in front of, no live audience.
Did they really?
Oh yeah. I mean, WrestleMania.
Did they pump in fake crowds or anything?
No, I mean, at first it was very awkward silence. I mean, they had to cancel WrestleMania a couple of years ago, literally right before I was supposed to go. It was in Tampa. It was the year before I moved down here. And they had to cancel it at the last minute because of COVID, and they had it in their performance center. And all you could hear was the announcers and the wrestlers reacting and hitting.
That's weird.
It was very
didn't
strange.
know that was a thing.
They started to kind of figure it out. AEW would hold shows in an auditorium that is adjacent to TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville. Jacksonville, where the Jaguars play, they started to have some events where they could distance people apart from each other because it was an open air auditorium. WWE's solution was to come up with the Thunderdome, where they had the screens. They actually bought out the Amway or whatever arena in Orlando and had screens set up all throughout the crowd, and you could go on and sign up and you could be there on your screen.
That's cool.
They called it Thunderdome. It was a very cool concept, and it definitely was better than an empty building. And yes, they started to put some of their contracted talent, lesser known people, when they were having it indoors in the Performance Center, out in the crowd so that they could at least have some noise there. But everyone that was a fan of pro wrestling learned from the pandemic that there's one piece of that show that it cannot exist or at least succeed without, and that's the fans.
Absolutely.
And so I draw inspiration. It's not just a personal interest thing of mine, but I draw inspiration. So with the idea with the show, again, very, very little, unique, original ideas. There's a wrestler who's one of my favorites whose name is Kevin Owens, and he has an interview segment on whether it's Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown where it's called the KO Show, because those are his initials, KO, the KO Show. And it was just interviews. And a lot of these segments that they have are unscripted, unrehearsed. It's like improv, basically. They have ideas of what they want to talk about in bullet points, and they have writers that give them a guide of what they should be working towards. But what they're doing is they're going out and they're turning the most successful of them take their personality, and it's turned all the way up to 11. They're not trying to pretend to be someone that they're not. They're just turning the volume up. The best example of that in history is Stone Cold Steve Austin. He had a couple of failed stops and characters along the way. He was the ringmaster and Stunning Steve and all that. At the end of the day, this is just a guy that loved to drink beer, ride on a four-wheeler, and now he's got this new show that he's got where he's going all over across the country doing all these different adventures with people, and he's very captivating as a talker and things like that. And he's the perfect example of someone just being themselves and turning it up to 11. So I started to think about, again, going back to is the perfect segue to this. Going back to the people that are creating such amazing content, people that have inspired me, just to name a few. Maggie and Jevin, doing low country stuff. Joe, the barber, does a great job, and no one, I think, I'm dying to have him on the show because I look at him, he's like the godfather of small business in Bluffton, basically. It's like that scene from what was it, Old School, where he says, "You are taking coffee with a king," and he's like, he's got the Godfather there. But like Joe he's a pioneer when it comes to that kind of stuff, and you have inspired me with things that you've done. And like you said, Addison does a great job with his marketing. Annie has her own style. All these different people, that brings something to the table. It's like when I've had a couple of the realtors on, it's like I'm a big music guy too. I love music. I love movies. It's not just the wrestling. Wrestling is an art form. And all of these professionals and all these different businesses, they have something unique that they bring to the table it's their creativity. So for me, I said, okay, I want to try to create some content. It's extremely important for me to be involved and to be a part of this community. Yes, I sell mortgages, and that's what I'm bringing to the table. But the idea for the show was to bring in other local professionals, other business owners, other individuals, not even necessarily related to real estate and homes and things like that. I've had a cleaning company on. I've had I think the most popular one has been Caroline Taylor, the Bluffton dog runner. Her husband, Will, then they both work with Homes Finder, but Will's on the real estate end of it. Caroline handles the marketing and things like that and graphic design and whatnot. All these people are so incredibly creative. And like you said, Brian, the simplicity of just, this is my sparkling clean car or airplane.
It's a classic rock.
To classic rock.
Love
and it's
it.
like, and like you said, with the song that Jevin made for me, the songs kind of stick in your head. And that's what I do is when I'm driving around, I'm going to offices and things like that. I'm hitting the Shazam button every few minutes because I'm like, oh yeah, I want to hold on to that song. I want to use that later for something that I'm putting out there. So for me, I'm not, I mean, I walked in here today and I'm like, wow, look at all this amazing equipment. I have a long way to go. I mean, we talked about the issue.
But I'm an equipment nerd. Don't let all this stuff.
Yeah, but it's
the hobby.
It's inspiring to me because I'm just literally, I got my phone on a thing, and like I said to you before the show, I had an issue with we filmed probably 20 minutes to a half hour of content with a couple of realtor friends of mine, and I had a little bit of a technology mishap, and I lost it, and I was pretty bent out of shape about that for a couple of days. But this is how we learn, and part of it is stepping out of your comfort zone. Part of it is learning something and acquiring the knowledge about something that you don't have a lot of experience with. But at the end of the day, I knew that stuff was going to come with reps, just like anything else. I just wanted to start to get the content out there and to start doing something. Yes. And
when you're ready, let me know. JC and I will come out. We'll set something up for you, even if it's on a budget. We'll do it.
Yeah, I mean,
the next step.
I was excited to do this today for a number of reasons, and one of them was, like I said when I sat down, there's something about this that just it feels right to me, So even though my profession is mortgage lending, that's my area of expertise. That and food. Follow at EatHHI on Instagram. I'm up to about 1,000 followers. Food is also a passion of mine.
You just posting food from the area?
Food from, local restaurants, breakfast, lunch, dinner, all that kind of stuff, comments and things like that. I feel like, restaurants were one of the things that were hardest hit during the COVID times. And one of the things that drew me to this area is the restaurants. I got Low Country Real Producers doing a feature on me in this magazine that's coming out, which is it's for like the top 300 real estate producers in the area.
That just start up recently down here?
It's coming up on about a year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely starting to catch fire more recently.
The last 2 months, I've seen them everywhere. I've seen that magazine everywhere. You guys have parties. I'm like, how do I get to this party that's in beautiful places?
And we'll talk about that too. And there's opportunities for partners to get involved.
I don't have time to go to the party. I want to go though.
It's an hour or two. Once a quarter.
I know. It's hard for me to get out. JC, can I go anywhere for an hour?
I know.
No.
You're a busy guy.
Lucky I'm here for an hour with you.
They did a feature on me, and I was very grateful for that. And mine was more focused on that part of it because, like I said, I started coming down here, when I was like 10 years old, and when I obviously got older. When I met my wife, we were kind of like foodies, and one of the things that drew me to this area was the amazing food scene, not just in Hilton Head, but in Bluffton, Beaufort, Savannah, all that kind of stuff. And, some of the restaurants didn't make it through, and I know they've had issues with staffing, and, they were hit with supply chain stuff, and it was kind of a rough time. But that's part of what I love about this area. And it's just one little thing. I mean, that's just a hobby of mine. Yeah. But the show specifically, it's a work in progress. I think it has, a long way to go. I think that there's a couple of different directions and things that I can go. But at the end of the day, it's just me taking some method of entertainment that inspires me and creating my own style to try to bring some content out there. And other than the amazing song and, the text that I'll throw up on the screen, need a loan, call De Simone with my phone number. Once that's over with, it's moving on to the interview. I appreciate you coming on. Yours was one of the best easily. There's been a lot of great information. I had a friend of mine from back home I worked with at my old company. He's like, do you have all this stuff written down? Are someone holding up cue cards? I'm like, no, this is all here. I know someone's coming by. I start thinking about it. Like I said, the night before you came over, I did a deep dive, started looking into all your history and how you came to be, where you are here and with Bluffton Builders and everything now. And it's a way for me to support friends of mine and their businesses, and also to produce some creative content. And I think that, it's definitely gotten attention out there. And then, but I always like to close it out with, usually when I'm sitting there, and we talked about this exact thing for sort of part 3, or the third question that I asked you was, I'm always thinking about what's next, right? Where do we go from here? So my wheels have been turning a lot about that. I think I might take a little bit of a hiatus through the next couple of months to try to, brainstorm some ideas of different new directions to take that into. I like the format of this show. I know it's obviously a longer format type of thing, whereas mine is more of like a quick hitter type of situation. But I think I'm onto something, and I think that, you know, the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, Caroline's videos up to over 500 views. I mean, you know, I know Will has videos on YouTube that are, I think one of them has been viewed like, I think he said like 80,000 times or something
Wow.
crazy like that. And you've educated me a lot about that and how things go on YouTube and how long they last versus Instagram and Facebook. And I'm still relatively new to all this stuff. If you were to ask me 5 years ago if I was going to be doing video, I would have told you that you were crazy. But
you got to.
I got here and I looked around and I said, well, this guy's doing it and this girl's doing it, and that's just mortgage. And then you got this guy who's a builder and this guy who's a barber and this guy who details cars and so on and so forth. And that's what's great about our community, is that we have people that they don't just work hard. They don't just work in their business, you know, as hard as they can. They work on their business. And what I love about this dynamic that we have with our little group and then the bigger collective group around us is we all support each other.
Yep.
You know, a rising tide lifts all ships, and we all have different interests, of course, but we're like-minded in the fact that we take our respective businesses very seriously, and we all want each other to succeed. And that's why I love being a part of the Chamber of Commerce. That's why, you know, I've gotten involved in Low Country Real Producers, which obviously is industry specific, you know, with real estate and the parallel businesses to it. But I think the ultimate thing here is being part of this, you know, whatever you want to say. What do they call it? It's a Bluffton state of mind, or Bluffton is a state of mind. I love being here, and I love being a part of that community. And I'm just trying to give back in some small way by giving a unique view about people that I've been fortunate enough and grateful to connect with, that have a lot of different services and things that they bring to the table. So
what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
So I am on Facebook, just Nick De Simone, very easy. Same with LinkedIn. For the more fun stuff, I'm at Instagram at Low Country Life, LO, no W, just LO for loan officer, loan originator, Country Life. And then the food pages at Eat HHI,
Okay. I got the song going for you. This is how we're going to run the outro.
I'm trying to do the outro, but I'm doing it. I'm sitting there. I'm doing the interview. I got the outro going on my iPod. It's not picking it up because I got the microphone on here, and they have the microphone here. So, like
you got mics. Like this pen would be like a mic. I mean, it could be a shoe at this point. It's not even real. It's real, right? But it's fun. It's a gag, and it's cheek of it. I love it. I love what you're doing.
I do know who this quote came from. It was Van Wilder. Don't take life too seriously.
You'll never get out alive. Yeah.
Words to live by, my friend.
Amen.
Nothing else, right?
Amen. And another one I wanted to drop before we're out of here. Attention is the only currency anymore. There's more value in attention than the American dollar.
It's true. It's true.
So
it's the world that we're living in.
You got to figure out the right way, organically. And when I don't mean like social media organically, I mean like true to yourself. Like we've been talking about some of these other folks doing a great job, including yourself. So you got to be who you are, man. And you're Nick De Simone.
The genuine article.
I like it, brother. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. Let's jam out to this. JC, we'll roll it. Bluffton Buzz podcast episode 4 is out. Who's next? I don't know, but it'll be somebody fun. Thanks for stopping by, Nick.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.